I want to do a quick video on the Spanish Star SS pistol. This particular gun is marked Inner Arms. I don't know if you can quite see that or not. Inner Arms of Alexandria, Virginia. And they were the sole distributor of the Star product line, both surplus and new weapons, for a few years. I think from the 70s, late 60s, early 70s to the mid 80s. I will go over that later, but as you can tell from my past videos, I'm working on building a collection of Spanish pistols, specifically Star pistols, because Star made a complete line of guns that was basically a copy of the 1911 Colt. It's a modified version. It's not identical. Llama made a copy almost identical to the 1911, and I think even some years the parts could even interchange. That's how close of a copy it was. But Star did not do that. Star has its own line of pistols, and they started off in the 20s, and they all have different letter designations like A's, B's. A lot of you are familiar with the A's and B's. The B would be a 9mm, and A would be 9mm Largo. And then you had the Super from around 1953, I believe. They developed the Super, which was a modification and a different takedown system. And then you had different other versions, B's, P's. P was usually a larger frame and was made in .45 caliber. And then you had like the S, and I think there's another, and this is actually an S. What it means with two S's is it's a Model S with a magazine safety, so henceforth SS. Like B's, the ones that were made during World War II didn't have a magazine safety, but they did produce the pistol until the mid-80s. So later on, when they had a B with a magazine safety, it was called a BS. So that's why the two S's. This is an S pistol. Now, I will get in detail to the different guns and that. And I've done a lot of research, both into Spanish gun makers and the Star company itself. And the thing is, this actually was an S pistol that was reworked, had the slide scrubbed, and had Inner Arms logo rolled on it. And if you take the grip apart and look at the manufacture date, it's been restamped for something in the 80s, 83 or something like that, 82. But in reality, this, or parts of this gun, was an older S. And how you can tell that, the magazine that comes with it has the little tab on the bottom, the older style with the tab, which kind of goes into the frame here, the groove frame. After a certain point, all Star pistols, no matter which model, were made with a flush base magazine. So this frame is a much older frame, and it's an S frame. It was later modified for magazine safety, restamped. Then what they did with these guns, because of the Gun Control Act of 1968, the gun is small. So in order to get it imported into the U.S., they added these points for certain criteria. And what it was is how long the barrel was, the length, so many points. Does it have, on these grips here, has a thumb rest. So that was a few, 8 points or something. The magazine safety was 10 more points. And then see, there's even this little stapling here. This is just a piece of plastic held in by the grips. And these are modifications Star did to the gun. So it would be, and then they put on also an adjustable sight, which the sight is not correct to this slide either. And what this did is then it met the criteria of not being a Saturday night special or a cheap small handgun, and will be able to be imported. And another thing, what we don't realize with Star is Star itself as a manufacturer had a policy. What it would do is if it sold guns to either the military or their government, the police or whatever, they had a thing that when this agency would come back and wish to buy a new model pistol or weapons, Star would let them trade in the older style guns or the older models, used guns. They would refurbish them and then sell them, okay, and use that as a partial discount to discount the amount or take that off the contract for the new guns. So what happened is, towards the end also, and where this pistol kind of come in, is in the 80s and then into the 90s. I think Star filed for bankruptcy sometime in the early 1990s. They made a deal with Interarms. They said, look, we're going to supply you with these guns. And what they did is they took these older guns and their spare parts for the S series. They weren't manufacturing it then, but they took all the spare parts and the older guns, refurbished them, used up the spare parts, dressed them up with these adjustable rear sight and grips and all this other stuff, and put a magazine safety in them, okay, and then they sold them to Interarms. And it is mentioned that because the company was kind of on the rocks, this was problematic, and I believe the guns were delivered to Interarms where there was a question of if they worked or not, okay. And it's kind of evident in this pistol. First, I didn't really invest a lot on it. It's a neat gun, but I had problems right out of the box. Wooden discharge, something about the firing pin. And how the firing pin is retained is the rear sight comes off, there's a pin, and then the firing pin and the spring. But if you look here in the back, I don't know if you can see it or not, you can kind of see where the firing pin is one side to the hole in the slide. Well, when I measured the hole in the slide, there's like a 25 thousandths difference. This firing pin looks new, but it's like the body that rides in the slide is 25 thousandths smaller in diameter. Probably meaning the older firing pins were bigger diameter and was a small change, but yet they stuffed a new firing pin in there. It doesn't quite fit. Now, I don't know if Star did this or if somebody had this gun apart. Also the spring. The spring is supposed to go over the narrow piece of the firing pin. Whatever kind of spring is in here, it's got to be wrong because it was stuck and I couldn't get it out. I have to get a little wire and try to yank it out. But what I did is I kind of sleeved the pin to get it to ride more concentric in the bore. I figured that would do it. Then also this adjustable sight has this 2 thousandths wide screw in there, slotting the screw and then bashing it on. Also, this rear sight doesn't quite fit in a dovetail. I mean, it goes in there tough. So when I smacked it back, I kind of messed up the screw. So now I got the firing pin more or less to line up, got the sight on, took it out this morning and tried to fire it. Number one, it shoots high, so this is the wrong rear sight, okay? And you have just a little fixed front sight into the slide, which is part of the slide. There's no way of changing it, removing it, so I have to get a different type of rear sight. The gun, what it's doing is the firing pin isn't quite going out. It's like intermittently going off, and again, I believe something with that spring. I think the spring is binding or not letting it travel all the way because the wrong spring is in there. So I'm going to have to take this all apart, go look for a different type of sight, see if I can get that spring out and then come up with some kind of spring that goes on there and makes it function properly. Well, anyway, so I got it to work, like I said, intermittently, and when I was firing it, the plastic grip kind of just broke right in through here. Just busted on me. So now the grips are coming apart pretty crappy. So I got to go and look for grips. I got to look for some parts, rear sight, and do a little work on this. I will make a series on collecting Spanish pistols. You've seen a few of my other videos, different other Spanish guns I got, and working with the 9mm Largo. This gun here, like I said, it's a neat little gun. I kind of don't like the thumb rest. Some people do like this thumb rest grip. I'd rather just have the straight wooden, see if I can get some straight wooden grips that fit on here. Get rid of the grips, see if I can find an older sight, rear sight somewhere. And then I got to pull the sight off and then go look into this firing pin thing, which basically I think if I get the wrong spring out, which is stuck in the slide, it should slide out, so I know it's the wrong spring, and come up with a substitute or something, I should be in business. And this will be a neat little gun. Also, on this, it came with an original magazine. Somebody drilled it out and put this little tab thing on there, I guess, to pull it out, because it doesn't drop free. It rubs in the spot. So I bought a magazine from Triple K, which looks similar, you know, went up in there, drops out. But then I noticed when I was looking at the two of them, the Triple K magazine doesn't quite lock in correctly, and when you fire it, the magazine will drop down out of the gun. So looking at the notches on the mags here, where it locks in, this notch is not the same as the one on the original, or the one that came with the gun. And you can see where it's rubbing. So I think just a little bit of file work and contouring this notch, kind of like the one that goes in there and locks in, will solve that problem. So there's going to be some gunsmithing done on this gun, and then I'll review this gun, go over the markings and that. But it's a shame because it's a nice, solid, well-made pistol. It's just been cobbled together. I don't know if it was by Star. I don't know if somebody got this and fooled with it themselves, but it was mentioned in my references that when Star had these last shipments in the 80s to Interarms, there was question about the reliability of the gun or functionality of the guns. So maybe that's the way they came in, and that's why a lot of these Spanish pistol makers got a real bad rap. It's not the quality, it's just that you got some part variants and other little mechanical problems that can be addressed and fixed. This grip thing kind of sucks, pissed me off. But enough for that for now. Now I'll get back to you later on it. I will do a series on collecting Spanish pistols, mainly the Stars, but I'll cover Astras and some other guns also. And that's what I've been working on all this summer, and you'll see more coming up here in the future.